We'll go ahead and go back to this function, and this request ID, as I said, is linked before. It's a key type variable, and this is the request. So we'll check it first to make sure that the request is the actual request that we're looking for, and we didn't get another request by mistake. It's not always necessary to do this, but it's a quick and easy check that will make things run smoother, and it could save you some problems sometime in the future. And we'll just ignore the status and the metadata for now, as we didn't really have anything inputted, so we won't. This data is not significant to our needs at this current time. And finally, the string body of the response is what we echoed back. So in this case, it would be what we were hoping for is that the data is received or that the entry is in the database. We do not like to see these errors, but those could also be possibilities of what you receive back when you run the response. So this response is what the PHP sends back to the user. And in this case, we're using LL owner say, which it acts as the same way as LL say on channel 0, but in this case, only the owner of the box can hear the message. And I like to do this for testing purposes, because that way you don't create a lot of spam in the region and everyone else can't hear what you're saying back with your objects, and it just keeps it a lot simpler. So I use owner say, and you don't even have to specify a channel because you're the only one that can hear this message that comes back. And I'm just simply saying everything that's in the body. So everything that the PHP code gives me back, I am repeating back into the virtual world, just so I have confirmation that things are working. And we'll go ahead and give this a test. So as you can see, I'll go ahead and click the box, and I get this nice message from my attendance box that says my data was received, which in this case means that my name got sent. Tyler Fitzhans would get sent as this variable, and I initially set the value of bool, which is just a Boolean variable that I'm using to keep track of whether the data is in the database or not. So I'm going to use it to check later on if my name is already in the database. And to do that, I'll open our flat file database, but at first I'll just open it so I can read the data, because I just want to go through and make sure that my name isn't in the database before I actually write to the database. So I open that, and if everything's successful, it continues through to this while loop where it goes through every line of the file and it gets the specific line, and then I'm going to compare each line to my name. But I don't only add the name, I also have to add the new line character so that it recognizes it as the same as the line. Otherwise, since I'm adding the new line character down here, it would not match up and you could get confused as why this isn't working. It seems like the line should equal your name, but you also have the new line character to take into consideration. And if this is the case where the two are equal, I would like to set this value to false, because I know that it already found my variable in the database, so I'm simply done at that point, and it'll continue through the whole file, and then it'll close the file. And then once at this point, I will check to see if this name was found. And let's say the case is that it was not found. If it wasn't found, then this value would still be true, and we would enter into this if statement. And this is where we will store the data into our database, just as we did before. And I'm sure you're familiar with this from my previous video. We simply open the flat file database, this time with the A, which means we can write to the file. And if that goes successfully, we'll simply write our name to the file, which is what we got above. We could also use this variable, which would probably be simpler to stay with the same format. But in this case, I just added the new line character as well. And we will close the file very simply and echo that our data was received, so we know. What you saw, the message data received back in the virtual world, which was the message we received, because just as we should, data received. That's what we expected, and that's what we got. So that means my data was initially entered into the database. So now Tyler Fitzhands should be present in our database. But if my name was already in the database, which I will demonstrate for you here in a second, this would indicate that the variable would be switched to false, and then we would skip this if statement completely and go down to the else statement, where it simply just sends that the data is already in the database and then exits out of the program. So it's a pretty simple way to make an attendance system which doesn't repeat duplicates, and it's a great way to check for people that you're looking for. And we'll go ahead and use the PHP data that we used before to check what entries are in our database. As you remember from before, it simply just prints out all the data, all the names in our database one by one. So it's pretty simple. We already have the name Katie Jones in our database, and we hope now, after I refresh this, that my name will also be added to the database. And we'll go ahead and run that, and we get Tyler Fitzhands right next to Katie Jones, and just as we expected. Now if we go back down here, and let's say I want to try to add my data to the database once more. I'll click the box again, try to add my data. It says data received, and we'll go back here, and now my name is added to the database. This is because Katie Jones was not entered in the same format as before, and this was just simply added onto the name, and the new line character did not get added. So as you can see, this is my FileZilla where I transfer my files over, and this is the database that I'm currently using, and this is where the site that it's uploaded on. And as you can see, I can open it up and I can look at this, and I'll simply delete this part because that was an unnecessary part, that simply because the enter statement got erased after Kate Jones from the editing I did prior to this. And now everything should be formatted correctly. We'll go ahead and close this and save the file. And I want it to save not locally but back into the database. And now it should be successfully updated. And if I go back to here, Kate Jones now does not have Tyler Fitzhands after it, and my name is added after hers. So we will go back into the virtual world, and now this time our data should not be received. And as you can see, the data is already in the database, just as we expected. This was the result we were hoping for, so this is a great indication that you know your program is working. But we want to make sure from the database standpoint that our function is working as well. So now not only do we want that message, but we want only one of my name to appear, and as I refresh, it's still only one name appears. Now if you want to test additional names, because as you can see, if I keep clicking this, it's just going to say that my entry is already in the database. So let's say I want to test to make sure it's still working, and this is just simply sending my name over and over again. If I don't have anyone else to come over and click my box for me, that'd be a simple way to do it. Just have someone else click it, which would do the same thing, and you could get their name. But I don't have that advantage right now because no one appears to be online. So I will simply add a John Smith, which I'm setting the name after the detected name, so this resets it to the name John Smith after it is initially set to my name. So this John Smith is the name that gets sent out through the HTTP request. And if I save this and go ahead and click on the box, now I'm acting as John Smith when I click on the box, and John Smith's data was received. So if I go in here and refresh once again, John Smith is now in my database. So if I want to be John Smith once again and click once more, his entry is already in the database, so it gives me the same message as before, as we would like to see. So I'll go ahead and put this back to normal, and I will save my database, and As you can see, now we have a perfectly functioning attendance box that works as we're intending, and so you'll get a nice list of all the people in your data that were able to click on the box, and this is a great way to keep track for meetings and that types of things. So there's a number of things that you can do with HTTP requests. You can get data from online in all sorts of ways and send it back and forth, store it in databases, receive it from databases. So possibilities are really only limited by what you can think of as a possibility. And I hope you found this tutorial helpful as well as the others, and this will conclude our series, and thank you for watching and following along.